You know, nobody notices when you change the world. I mean, think about it. On December 17th, 1903, Wilbur and Orville Wright conquered flight. It was the single most important event in the history of mankind. And unlike, let's say, nanotechnology, even a 2-year-old could grasp how game-changing it was. Why is he a bird, Mommy? I could think about what they would say. Can I be one? But guess what? Nobody noticed. On the front page of the New York Times the day after the first successful powered flight, AKA making history, not a word about the Wright brothers. 2 days later, still nothing. In fact, it wasn't until 1906, 3 long years later, that the Times first mentioned them. And even then, the public couldn't even fully grasp what was happening. People were so convinced that flight was impossible. The people who witnessed it, the ones that watched the Wright brothers taking off, actually flying in the sky, at first hand thought it was some silly magic trick. So this story, it proves that there's a significant gap between changing the world and convincing people that you've actually changed the world. That's because the things we instantly adopt are typically just variations of something we already know. Whereas the true innovative products, those with the potential to change everything, are rarely understood at first. Wilbur and Orville, they weren't alone. When Alexander Graham Bell tried to sell the telephone to Western Union, they said it had no value and too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a practical form, I think, of communication. Now, when Henry Ford introduced the car, Congress hated it. They threatened to take prompt legislative action against the horseless carriage propelled by gasoline. As Jeff Bezos once said, innovation requires long-term willingness to be misunderstood. Your brilliance will deliver the idea, but your patience and your underlying commitment to the mission, that's what will deliver success.
Plane. Well then, we just need to figure out how to fix it.
The real question is what does the consumer
They want expertise.
And so they gave you enough information for you to be enough of an expert to do it on your own, and there's a subset of the market that's value to, and there's a subset of the market.
Negotiate your own house?
Right.
I mean, that's where most of the money.
Well, I agree. I agree.
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, I know you're making me agree with you. But what are all the things that you have to do?
Right.
What happens if that
What are all the variables involved?
That's
in
my point. Are they going to answer?
affect
That's my
the
point.
net amount of money you want?
Yeah, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
Are they going to answer the phone when a seller calls at 6:30 and call that seller buyer back and tell? The problem we have right now is that the agent doesn't want to keep the promise that brand makes.
Right.
What that brand makes is home ownership. Right. Downpayment.org makes a promise that I'll help you get a home when you think you can't get a home.
That's exactly what.
And the agent doesn't want to help fulfill the promise of helping a homeowner get a home when they can't get a home, because if they did, they would do the things necessary when that person couldn't get a home, even if it was not downpayment.org, even if it wasn't their brand. Right. They would still be delivering that promise under the promise of downpayment.org, and that would just be one fulfillment. If that meant you need credit restoration, if I need to call you back in 6 months or 11 months, if I need to send you this piece of paper, I would be delivering the promise of home ownership. This is a true story. Yeah. Lady, 140,000 equity. She, if they don't get someone to buy it in 3 weeks, that's a bad appointment.
Foreclosure.
Right, go to foreclosure. So that they think that's a bad listing appointment. That's not how I've ever thought. That person needed better advice.
If all of our partners, referral partners, anybody that we're currently doing business with, if they kept that promise, what would everything look like right now?
Be game over.
The solution might be, if they have time and if they want to sell their home for the most amount of money and they're trying to prepare, the solution might be they need a stager.
Right.
Yeah, they need to renovate.
Right? Or they need the right vendor.
Right.
So if we're focused on being able to answer that, whatever that need is,
Right.
whatever that need is for the home buyer or the home seller.
The most important thing about time is the time value of money. If you take the $28,000 that you could have made on the sale of your home and invested that over time, what was the real true cost of that bad advice?
So the real question is, do you want to sell at the top of the market, the middle of the market, or the bottom of the market?
Right.
And depending on the advice that you receive and how you invest in the process is going to determine whether or not you sell for the most amount of money.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
There we
Let's
go.
go take over the industry.
This is how it's gonna be. This is what you think of me. It's going down like I told you. This is how it's gonna be. I'll be the last man standing here. I'm not going anywhere. It's going down like I told you. I'll be the last man standing here. I'm gonna rock you. I'm gonna rock you. I'm gonna rock you. I'll have you begging for mercy, begging for mercy. Oh, I'm dangerous. So dangerous. I'm dangerous. So dangerous.
We were talking about really the movement, right? And it literally always came back to being an expert advisor.
The expert advisor is the advocate for the consumer. It's delivering on that message that's what makes it different. You know, how many times have you spent time away from your family? I know that I miss some of my kids' games. You can get to 1,000, 2,000 transactions. What's your threshold for paying?
But what happens when you join forces and you leverage economies of scale and you divide up the pie in a way that everybody wins, and you create win-win scenarios and you capture the value net and you create a bigger opportunity for everyone by joining forces and putting our fires together, right? You know, it's going from competition to coopetition.